Indeed, to all our viewers from Kenya and around the globe, many thanks for joining us. I am Faith Kaulu, and this is The Press, where we get to take an exclusive and universal look at substantial issues affecting the public in matters politics, health, sports, arts, and culture. But first of all, let us have a look at major stories making headlines across the world. According to the Ministry of Health in the Democratic Republic of Congo, there are now 358 cases of Ebola and 213 deaths have been recorded since the outbreak in August this year. Conflict between militant groups and the government forces has made it hard for health workers to access some of the hardest hit areas. Elsewhere, the White Magazine, one of Australia's leading wedding magazines, is now shutting down after it refused to feature couples of the same sex. Luke and Carla Burrell, founders of the White Magazine, have confirmed that advertisers have abandoned them and all investors have withdrawn following the decision. In a farewell post on their website, the founders stated that they have been targeted by a flood of judgment and previous couples who have featured in the magazine are now victims of online abuse. Finally, Venezuela has now been hit by the world's most humanitarian crisis as cases of extreme poverty in the country have increased by 40% and deaths related to child malnutrition are on the rise. Mothers have been hit hard as they choose to give out their infants due to lack of enough capital to sustain them. Now, today at The Press, we are going to focus on our third story, where mothers in Venezuela are giving out their babies due to lack of financial capital to raise them up, as well as children are dying due to malnutrition. Now, this is an important aspect for us to cover here in our country, especially after the alarming number of pregnant candidates that has been witnessed in the just concluded national examinations, that is the KCPE and KCSE. We are all aware that in our country, the talk on contraception is a leaf that has been left unturned by many. Could we be at a risk of facing the consequences of this action? Remember to talk to me via our social media platforms, that is at Faith Kaulu, both on Facebook and Twitter. And if I may just sample a few of the comments as they stream in. On Twitter, at Monjela Anzia says, "Indeed, the number of teenage pregnancies is alarming. Something should be done to curb this problem." Right about now, we are going to have a look at Matters Contraception, a feature that has been compiled by our correspondent Charity Monde. Let's have a look.
The use of contraceptives in Kenya has risen fast over the past 10 years. Recent data from Kenya Demographic and Health Survey show that 49.9% of young Kenyans are using unrecognized methods of contraception. The ironic question is, why is there a high rate of unplanned pregnancies and teenage childbirth in a country that has a high number of contraception patches? Virginia Ndunge, a young mother, shares with us how she conceived even while under contraception.
Kwa majina naitwa Virginia Ndunge, naishi Swiss, Leicester. Niko hapa kwa kuwaelezea kuhusu madawa ya family planning. Nilikuwa naitumia kwa muda ya miezi 8. Nimekuja kugundua ya kwamba mtu anaweza pepa mimba hata kama unatumia hizo madawa za family planning.
It has been established that 1 out of 5 teens aged between 15 to 19 is either pregnant or a mother. These statistics have alarmed the Ministry of Education, especially after the number of pregnant candidates rapidly shot up in the just concluded national examination. By using contraceptives, such cases of unwanted and early pregnancies can be avoided amongst people who are sexually active in this age bracket. From further research, it was clear that the fear of side effects has kept most women from learning and benefiting from the proper use of family planning. Ruth, commonly known by many from her village as Mama Stano, shares with us her sentiments on the same.
Mimi niliamua situmii family planning sababu sinaleta madhara kadhaa kama sindano hii ya 3 months inaweza kukufanya umbulidi sana before your period. Shida ingine hizi ndawa zenye za family planning tupewe nini zenye zinakunywa kila asubuhi ama jioni zinaleta madhara, unaweza sikia kutapika ama zinaweza kuletea kitu kama pressure yako ikuange tu juu.
As the figures of unwanted teenage pregnancies continue to shock many in the country, the unanswered question is, who will save young women in our country from this festering crisis? Charity Muya, The Press.
Indeed, such disquieting information captured on Matters Contraception. Now, Charity Mwende joins us live from Machakos, Kenya, where she has been covering this story. If you can clearly get me, Charity, just let us know what people on the ground are saying concerning the alarming upsurge on early and teenage pregnancies.
Yes, Faith. The reported high rates of teenage pregnancies in Kenya has not been good news to most Kenyans, considering the fact that teenage pregnancy, which is unplanned pregnancy, has a long impact on the girl's life, changing the trajectory of the girl's life with long-term impact.
Indeed, very enlightening information. And maybe just to inquire, what are some of the initiatives that the government can put in place to ensure that this peril has been restrained?
Through the Ministry of Education, the government should ensure that relationship and sex education is conducted in both primary and secondary schools to ensure that age-appropriate sexuality education is conducted. With this, it will help support young people develop safe and healthy relationships that will help them prevent unplanned pregnancies. With that, more girls will be able to stay in school and stay healthy. Back to you, Faith Kaulu.
Thank you so much, Charity Mwende. And just to go back to our social media platforms, remember you can talk to me via social media handles at Faith Kaulu and on Facebook at Pamela Wanjiru says, Matters Contraception reflects what is in the society. Most people are confused on the best contraceptive methods to use. While on Twitter at Grace_Soni states, everyone in the society is to blame for this crisis. Parents have delegated their parental roles to teachers, which gets overwhelming. Let's remember the church has a role to play too. Now here at The Press, we don't just end it there. We take an in-depth look and analysis at matters, as well as bringing different voices of reasoning to the table to help us comprehend things better. Now today on board, we have Mrs. Mabel Odima, a psychology lecturer at DC University, as well as a sociologist by profession. Thank you so much, Mrs. Odima, for being here. Moving on, we have Mr. Paul Ogola, a student leader at the Daystar Christian Fellowship, as well as a Christian counselor and a graduate from the School of Theology at the University of Philadelphia. Such a great honor to have you on board, Mr. Paul. And finally, we have Dr. Jen Mashira, a gynecologist from GynaCare, who is just here to clear the air on matters contraception. Such an honor and pleasure to have you on board too, Dr. Jen. If you may begin this discussion for us, Mrs. Mabel Odima, do you think the society is willing to accept and openly discuss on matters contraception?
Matters contraception have been a matter of great discussion since the days of old, 70s, 80s, 90s, and the millennium. The society is open to discussing these things. The only problem is that, we don't have specific platforms, maybe for teenagers, for children, at the family level, schools and institutions and other places. Society is open.
Interesting. Just to inquire, what is your take? Do you think contraception is the solution to the current crisis we are facing in our country on early and teenage pregnancies?
Contraception could just be one of the last measures to include in managing teenage pregnancies. But I want to say that things begin at home, in the family, at the socialization level, where key parents, mother, father, are talking sexuality on a healthy basis with their children. They're answering questions, they're listening to the concerns of the youth, the adolescents as they grow, how they manage sexual feelings and all that. That's where it begins, and it goes to school after that. It also, in the family, also would depend on the caregivers, the quality of caregivers in the family that children are left with. Then there's the role of the church, the school. The worst is the peer group, and the overall perception of adult world on contraceptions and young people.
Indeed, very important aspects you're bringing on board. Just to inquire now, who is to blame? You know, most people might wonder, is it our parents, the society, the school at large? You don't just clear the air. Who is actually to blame for this crisis?
We can apportion the blame to all of us. If we blame the teenager too much, we are all in the wrong. I still put 40% of my blame on the family, where we have the parents that have brought this individual into the world and they have watched this person grow and they have been there to articulate certain structures in their lives. If that is not done well at home, as they transition to school, things go from bad to worse, because formation takes place from 0 to 7. And if a child leaves home and they don't have basic values, basic principles, basic skills to handle life, then it's lost as they go to school. Anything will come by and it will happen that they'll enter into peer pressure.
And maybe just to get your final remarks on this issue, do you think this is a blow especially to women empowerment?
Faith, let me tell you, things have changed. To get pregnant is just an episode in your life. It's not a blow, because after that, actually, we're able to counsel girls and they go back to school and they get the education. So to get a baby is not a tragedy, it's what happens after that. Even especially from the perspective of the girl. You can get a baby and that baby will be a blessing. And you can go back to school and become the president of Kenya, even if you are a mother of 2 and you are single. So it's not a tragedy, because we are living in fairly informed days and you have structures to support even that girl who is in teenage pregnancy and has a baby.
And if we may now head on to you, Mr. Paul Ogola, set the record straight first. What is the biblical view on contraception?
Theologians have tried to argue and reason out that the use of contraceptives rather is not godly, and at the same time they're also supporting the use of contraceptives to curb the teenage pregnancy at the same time. Somebody said that the appetite for sex in this 21st century era is so high that if God is not going to do something, then he has an apology to make to the children of Sodom and Gomorrah, because they were suffering from the same. And I normally tell people, especially the young teenagers that I like talking to, because I'm called into the youth ministry, that it is good when everyone drinks water from their own cistern, what the Bible calls a cistern, when you have your mate at the prime time. You are allowed to enjoy sex as many as possible. Funnily enough, that in this era, people fear pregnancy more than STIs and any other related sexually transmitted diseases. I tend to believe that as a Christian, abortion, of course, is no go zone. But our students are affected, our youth are affected, our teenagers are affected outside there. And there is a need for the Christian body, for the learning institution bodies and organizations need to come together so that this issue should be put clear.
Indeed, now in our daily lives, we cannot ignore the aspect of religion. What do you think is the Christian solution to the early teenage pregnancies?
Is to be real, because as I said, there are many theological schools that have really tried to agonize the matter that use of contraceptives and the pills is not godly and is actually not mentioned anywhere in the Bible. So it is sinful to add a lot. But how about if we talk about these things in church, especially here in Africa? To talk about sex is a taboo and no one wants to talk about it. The primary teachers will not talk about it. If you go to the high school, they will not talk about it. And it's sad that even in the higher learning institution like the universities, people don't still talk about sex. And I thank God that if we can come boldly and discuss this thing openly, we tell the youth what is sex before they go find out from the YouTube. We tell youths about sex before the boda guy teach our ladies how to go about it, or before these nocturnal business ladies teach our young men how to go about this. I think we're gonna help a lot in that.
Okay, interesting enough, Mr. Paul, but don't you think the education and teaching happening in our schools already is enough to help young people understand on matters sexuality, that you now have to drag these same teachings to our churches? What difference is it gonna make, and is it really necessary?
It is being done, but not to the depth of conviction. We normally, especially in churches, I've seen people handling the matter of sex, but it is shallowly done. So there are a lot of handpans that are left lying fallow without being untouched. And that's what I'm saying. If the institutions, if organizations and churches can be radicalized in a way to speak these things boldly, to address this need, because we are at a very point whereby we are not just learning, but we also want to try. So after you've taught me, but you did not reach the depth that I wanted to know, because the current youth is really, really informed. There is overload of information along our media platforms. So if you don't tell me, I will go check. And as I'm checking, I land on this pornographic film. I consume it. At the end of the day, it will force me to masturbation. If not, it will force me to look for a lesbian if I'm a lady. Because if I'm seen by the opposite sex, it is wrong. It's a taboo. Or I become gay on the other side. But if you tell me the consequences and everything, I'll get to know. Don't just tell us the consequences. Tell us, because in real sense, sex is not bad, but it's only meant for the right people at the right time upon marriage.
And right about now, we move to you, Dr. Jen Mashir. If you may just clear the air. A lot of people are wondering, what is the right age to start being on contraception?
That's a tricky question. There's no right answer for that. Because usually you need, for minors, you might need parental consent. But still, we believe that it's better for teenagers or people who are sexually active. If you're sexually active, then you should be on a method, because the alternative is, of course, unwanted pregnancies, all the abortions, and especially dangerous abortions that take place. So I believe that there's no right age that's documented, but this young person needs to understand that if they're to engage sexually, then they should be on a method.
Indeed. Now, is it 100% guaranteed in that when one is under contraception, conceiving will not happen?
No, there's no 100% method. The one that is close to 100%, of course, are the permanent methods. You know, the tubal ligation. That's a word that means cutting of the tubes, or tying of the tubes, and tying of the sperm ducts. However, even these fail. Sometimes there's reversal. So they have very low failure rates, but at least they are close to being effective. All methods have a small failure rate. The highest being after the permanent methods, for those that need to be, that are reversible, being some of the hormonal methods. They're quite effective, especially the injectables and the implants.
Indeed, very enlightening information right there. Now, our reporter gathered that most women are afraid of using contraceptives due to the side effects that are accompanied by them. Now, can these side effects be dealt with or avoided in any way?
Yeah, that's very true. I agree with what the reporter found. I have seen, I've met clients who who have avoided using, the formal contraceptives because of fearing side effects, and they end up using wrong methods, like using an emergency pill every month. And of course that is counterproductive. That would have more side effects. Now, some of the side effects, they're not general. Depends on the method. Of course, the hormonal methods have quite a number of side effects, some of them. The pill, the everyday pill, has the least number of side effects. Some of them include a bit of nausea, a bit of headache, very little weight gain, if any. But for some, especially the progesterone-only methods like the injectables and the implants, would have slightly more side effects, and these do not happen to everyone. Some people do not notice anything for even 10-year use, while for some people they have to stop using the method because of side effect. Some of the ones for the injectables include irregular bleeding. Some people experience irregular bleeding. The periods disappear for quite some time, and then when they come, they cannot tell. They spot almost every day or bleed for prolonged periods of time. Others include a bit of weight gain. Okay, it could be skin changes, acne, and others. Could also be mood changes. That's quite significant, especially for the progesterone-only methods. And then one thing that people fear a lot with what we call the coil or the IUD. Some people think that it causes a lot of discharge, which is not true. It doesn't cause more infections. However, it could cause a bit of crampy periods and heavy periods for those who already had that. So that is one of the considerations we have when advising on the use. So people who already have very heavy periods then might not be good candidates for the intrauterine device. But there are many there, just like hairstyles. I keep on telling patients, like hairstyles for women, there's no perfect hairstyle for anyone and for everyone. You choose. They're not permanent. If you get a side effect, then you can change to another method.
Indeed, thank you so much for joining us right here at the press today. Just sharing your thoughts and insights on this issue was very enlightening. Dr. Jen Mashiro, right there, a gynecologist at Gynacare. Mr. Paulo Gola, student leader at the Dester Christian Fellowship, a Christian counselor, as well as a graduate from the School of Theology at the University of Philadelphia, and also Mrs. Mabel Odima, psychology lecturer at Dester University and a sociologist by profession. Thank you. Now, as we head on to Facebook to just check on your comments, as Laura Vanel says, both genders should be responsible. This is a problem that affects us all. Blaming the girl child for early pregnancies is nowhere close to a solution. It is very evident that young people in our country are either ignorant or oblivious of the importance and proper use of contraception. And no, the problem is not only young adults in our country, but a lot of questions can be raised concerning parenting, education, and where we all went wrong. Now think about this. You have a role to play in all this too. Get the proper education on healthcare and sexuality and pass it on to the next person and the next generation. I know a lot of questions can be raised concerning the government, our schools, religion, and all the other institutions. They have a role to play too, but it all begins with you first. Pushing and championing for such conversations is a step forward towards the right direction. Indeed, thank you so much for joining us today right here at the press. Let's continue to have this discussion on our social media platforms. I am Faith Kaulu. Till next time, see you then.